Doc Leeson here, the podcasting beast from the East with the Professor John Gotti, the king of RNG, the troll master, the data analyzing ninja. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the conqueror, Professor Omega, the cleaner. How you doing there, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, man. I am the wise man of your reigning, defending, undisputed podcasting champion, the tribal beast, the head of the table, Los Tranquilo himself, the Pied Piper of podcasting, the sanitizer, Doc Leeson. What's going on, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
You know, sometimes you just gotta wear the colors.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, too. Dang good job. Dang good job. What a beast. What a beast. But yeah, I'm technically wearing blue, too, but I mean, not that peacock blue that you have on. Shout out to you. But we had some coaching news. Jumping right into it. Seems as though Jim Harbaugh has walked out of Minnesota with no deal. He's already slated to go back to Michigan. I think all the hype has died down in Minnesota, as it seems as though they expect to hire Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell for their vacancy.
Yeah, I feel really bad for him though, because like all the fanfare for Harbaugh, and then he's like, I kind of don't want to leave college, which we kind of said
Sure, we
when they
did.
first
We did.
started to do those rumors about a month ago. We were
Mhm.
both like, I don't think he should leave. Like
He
he's
shouldn't.
doing something
Yeah.
great. Like yeah, some coordinators absolutely, they can, they would deserve a chance, but I don't think Harbaugh wants to leave.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it would have been a bad idea.
And now, essentially the Vikings are getting their silver medal. And, for me, like, I'll feel a certain type of way heading into a job. Like, it'll make me want to work harder, but like at the same time, like,
Agreed. I can agree.
he kind of settled for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it would have been weird. I mean, you took the team, almost to the national freaking championship
Yeah,
game,
one game away from the
and
national championship
yeah,
game.
and then you just decide to leave. It would have been kind of weird. But I'm glad he's staying. Um, and Kevin O'Connell, I mean, what he's done with the Rams, I mean, I can't say that he's not a bad choice. And we're going to talk about, obviously, the Brian Flores situation, but I can't say that I'm not, surprised that someone of his stature would get the nod. And the Vikings have a similar core piece that similar to the Rams. I think if I'm looking at the Rams and the Vikings, that's a really, really good match for him. Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, one of the same, one and the same, in my opinion, one and the same.
That's an interesting take.
Justin Jefferson, OBJ, or Justin Jefferson and Woods, one and the same. Justin Jefferson actually has a little more upside because he's younger. But obviously Cooper Kupp is an upgrade over Adam Thielen, but it's not by very much. I think in that system, Adam Thielen has just as much productivity as Cooper Kupp. Yes, I said it.
That
I
is
meant to.
interesting.
And I'll go on to say that I think that he would be more successful if he runs the same offense with the Vikings because they have Dalvin Cook, where the Rams struggle to have a running offense. So it's going to be interesting to say the
I'm
least.
surprised you didn't compare anyone to Vance Jefferson.
Well, I don't know all the Vikings receivers. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, there might be another guy in Minnesota that's just like man, or hey, maybe O'Connell steals man with him. You know what I'm saying? Because somebody's gonna have to go. OBJ staying around, Woods staying around, Cup staying around. So maybe Jefferson's around for another year or two, and then he's out the door. Who knows? Maybe the Vikings draft the next Van Jefferson. But I think it's going to be an interesting case for him with Minnesota. I kind of like that that pairing. See, that makes sense. This one
Yeah.
makes sense. All the other ones are kind
Schematically,
of
it makes
weird.
sense.
All the other jobs are kind of weird. I'm glad the Jacksonville job's still open. I'm glad the Texans job is still open, which we'll get to momentarily. The only other piece of news was that the Detroit Lions general manager Brad Holmes said they are never scared to move around in the draft, and they may be interested in trading out of the number 2 pick, which you really had to sit there and say to yourself, like, do we want to draft somebody this high? You know,
Yes.
do we believe in Jared Goff? Do we decide to stick with this? I mean, that's a major valid question.
I
Do
mean,
we
I'll,
decide
I'll
to stick
say
with
this
Goff?
then, and I'll stand on this hill. He's better than Carson Wentz.
I mean, that's not a bad hill to stand on. That's not a bad hill to stand on. I think initially when the trade was made, Goff for Stafford, obviously some people shook their head, like, hey, is this a good deal? Obviously, hindsight now, not saying that Matthew Stafford is the reason why the Rams went to the Super Bowl, because obviously Jared Goff did the same thing. But the question is, can Matthew Stafford win it?
I
That's the
mean, I
major
mean, some
question.
might even say that the reason why the Rams made it to the Super Bowl was more from Todd Gurley.
Ooh, that's a good take. I mean, but not necessarily because they don't run the ball well. So I don't know if I can accept that.
Around
Um,
then,
I,
yeah, they ran the ball a little bit better.
I'm talking about now. They don't they
Oh
don't they
yeah,
don't run the
now
ball. Yeah,
no,
that's what I'm saying. If they
no.
ran the ball better now, then I would say, oh, it's definitely Todd Gurley. But right now, I just think they're grooving, man. Like they have a good defense. They got a great offense. They're really grooving right now. I'll give them a lot of credit. They're there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving and shaking. And yeah, I'll say that they're grooving at the right time is what we'll say.
Yes,
But ultimately, I think it'll come down to I think in regards to this particular pairing, Jared Goff. You know, I don't think he's going to command a lot of money. So if I'm the Lions, I might commit to him for one more year. And try to build around him and see what he can do. He led them to some really good
he
games.
led them to literally one of the best non-winning teams
You
in
did say
NFL
that.
history.
You said that several times.
Like they had so many. It was a lot of heartbreaking games. Like it's not like they sat
Hmm.
there and got destroyed. There was
Right.
a couple of games that got destroyed at, but it wasn't like a big majority of them. I mean, when you think of like Lions teams in the past,
Hmm.
many people would take that game as a second bye week. This season, this past season, regular season, that is,
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
was a lot more tougher to get
Big time.
that dub against those Detroit Lions.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And they have some pieces that they need to work around. So we'll see from there.
Yeah.
But
I mean, all they
um,
really need is a solid draft. I don't know what their draft situation is currently as far as how many picks
yeah,
they have upcoming, but
we'll see.
if they can
I
build
don't
around
know.
the
Yeah,
draft, I mean, anything can happen.
very true. Like I said, I'm interested to see what happens. I think it's going to be interesting for the Lions, but it's good to see that the GM isn't scared to move around, even if he has to move up to the number 1 spot, which I doubt they do. I think the 2 pass rushers most likely that's going to go 1 and 2. I believe it's Michigan and I want to say Georgia or Texas A&M, one of those big schools.
Mhm.
They have two solid pass rushers that are going to probably go 1 and 2. And we'll have to wait and see what happens
Yeah,
from
this
there.
this
But
may this may end up being a defensive heavy draft.
and for teams like the Bucks, that's completely all right. So before we segue, I mean, which I think this is the perfect segue article. The Houston Texans are now down to 3 finalists for their head coaching positions, and I'm going to read the names, and you just let me know right off the bat. How controversy this already is, and it has a chance to be a dumpster fire of a hiring or a dumpster fire of a media storm here. We have the aforementioned Josh McCown weeks ago. We mentioned Josh McCown being in his second interview in 2 years, or second interview in, I guess, two head coaching stints
So,
with
and
the
the thing
Texans
about him, and I don't know if you knew this or not, I believe they originally was going to hire him, but he
with
decided
last.
yes, but he
Hmm,
decided he wanted to step away because he wanted to do stuff with his kids. I
oh boy,
know.
oh boy. I wouldn't want to take that job last year either.
I actually think they might end up going with Josh McCown. Like
There we go.
the fact that they went back to him again.
No, I get it. I get what you're saying. So you got Josh McCown. Then there's a gentleman named Jonathan Gannon,
Hmm.
who I don't know who Jonathan Gannon is. I'm not gonna
He's the
lie to you.
defensive coordinator for the Eagles.
Yeah, and I
The Eagles'
mm,
defense wasn't terrible. It's just that their offense wasn't that good.
no, this is a no for me, dog. Lastly, we have Brian Flores, who obviously fits the bill for what the Texans need at this very moment, because the Texans used to be a tough team, and right now they're just not playing tough anymore. But now you have this situation, right? This is where
Well, the
the media
Texans are the
storm comes in.
definition of inconsistency in the
Very true.
NFL.
But I mean, that also comes with handing the keys over to the wrong person, and then
Sure,
giving him,
let's go with
and
that.
then and then not only handing him keys to the, to the front door, but then you say, well, hey, you know what, you're going to get a key to the upstairs room too.
Okay, good. I was glad that you wasn't going in a different direction with that.
No, 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 no. Yeah, it's like they just gave away too much. I mean, I just thought that it was one of them
This is a
situations.
family show, folks.
No, 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 no. Call the locksmith. No, no,
Ooh,
no.
that was
We're
good.
not
You
doing.
know what? That enforcement like conduct penalty from earlier this morning that has been revoked.
Yeah. But looking at the situation, obviously with Brian Flores, we finally got a statement from the Dolphins owner Stephen Ross,
Hmm.
stating that the allegations made were, I mean, obviously he's going to call
Uh-huh.
them a lie,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Of
right?
course he has to say that.
He said these baseless, unfair, and disparaging claims are, deformative. He's like, I'm a guy with high honor and integrity and cannot let them stand without responding. Of course, he takes great personal exception to these malicious attacks. And, he says that they're false, malicious, and again, defamatory. Um,
You
again,
know, I
there's got to
would
be
believe
some
that
receipts.
if there hasn't been confirmation of
Hmm.
witnesses of that conversation.
Right.
So it's a very PC response
Yes, they're very
from
like,
Mr.
dang,
Ross.
like dang well I didn't do this. Like if he would have came out and say I did not do this, here's the messages. Like this guy came out with messages. He came out with
Yeah,
practically
again, this is what we talked
everything.
about. He came out with receipts. He
Right,
showed the
big
receipts
time receipts.
already. He's like, I got
Hmm.
nothing to hide. By all
Nothing.
means, try to paint my character in a negative light.
This was as close to a come on Sammy, shoot me
You know
media
what? I
moment.
was gonna go there, but I
Yes.
felt like we probably shouldn't use
No.
shoot in this
No.
entire
It's fine.
segment.
Well, technically, this technically is a shoot on the Dolphins.
No, this is
It's not a
oh
work. It's
yeah,
definitely
no,
not a
it's
work.
definitely not a work.
It's not a work. Yeah,
Woo.
this is a shoot on the Dolphins owner.
Oh,
Like,
you might have to
this is it.
explain the shoot part for those that don't
Well, I mean, a shoot.
understand.
I mean, yeah, I think they'd be able to know, but a shoot pretty much is when. I mean, honestly, is when you're just telling a story. From my experience, you're just telling a story. We obviously usually hear this in wrestling terminology, when someone is telling a story or telling the behind the scenes or behind the curtain look behind the, I guess, behind the curtain. A behind the curtain look at what really happens, in professional wrestling. But this is a situation where,
Would you say that they be unraveling the, dare I say, dark side of the ring?
oh, Yikes, Johnny.
What? That was, oh my gosh. What? That was awesome.
Not Dark Side of the Ring.
That was awesome. Come on.
I'll give you credit, I guess.
Okay. Jeez, it's hard out here in these streets.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it. But I mean, this is a great opportunity for Brian Flores to give a shoot, and then you have people like Hugh Jackson, jumping in. I'm sure some of the other coaches that have been around for years.
I mean,
And I would say the Pep Hamiltons, the oh God, what's his name from Tampa right now? Not the
Brian
two
Leftwich.
coordinator. No, 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 no. Godwin, Harold Godwin, who is,
Hmm.
I mean, dominating, as a coordinator. He was there at the same time that, obviously Tony Dungy was there. It was him. It was Jim Caldwell, and then I think Pep Hamilton was sprinkled in there. So all these guys like dominated the league at a certain time offensively, and I know Jim Caldwell gets opportunities, but again, transitional
I mean,
coach so
and
far in
we
his
kind of
career.
talked about that a long time ago
Hmm.
about when he got fired and like why that wasn't the most. It's almost eerily similar to Aaron Flores situation. Now that we have some sense of hindsight, which is kind of
Yeah,
ridiculous.
but
But
when you
another
think about it,
name. Now, one
uh
name that would be interesting to hear if he decides to step up and talk about this, and this is a name that has been thrown around the bend for the past 2 seasons, Doc.
oh, don't you dare say it.
Eric Bieniemy.
Oh, well, okay. I thought
Wait,
you was
who
gonna go
you?
Marvin Lewis. I thought you was going Marvin Lewis. I was like, oh my God, he better
No.
not say Marvin Lewis. Because I mean, as much grief as I give Marvin Lewis, I guess from this experience, I have a deeper respect for him. Like,
Hmm.
I love Mike Tomlin. I mean, I just think he's the embodiment of a regular coach. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that's what people have to realize. Like, yes, there are white coaches, there are black coaches. I don't know if there are any Hispanic coaches or anything like that. But more diversity in coaching, in ownership,
Yep.
in leadership, I think is important. And Mike Tomlin being on the hill for 10 plus years, you know, like I said, Hugh Jackson was good. I just don't think Cleveland was a great opportunity. Jim Caldwell's been great. Obviously, he's the only guy that could freaking have a successful season in Detroit probably within the last 10 years. What he did in Indianapolis was great. What Todd Bowles was able to do in New York, the New York Jets franchise was
Well,
great.
you know, the last time the Lions had a winning season, right? It was with Jim Caldwell at the helm, and I
Jim
believe it was
Caldwell was it 2006?
2003.
I thought it was 2000, like
I think it was like
because I think it was
2003.
2003. Are you sure?
It's 2003. It's been a while. Let's just say that it's been a while.
So I thought it was pretty recent. I thought he was the coach prior to let me
I
go
think you
back.
might be right.
Yeah, yeah, he was the coach prior to 2014 to
It just
2017.
shows how long it's been.
It
That's
seems like
that's
a
what I'm
long
trying to
time.
state.
And I said that he's the only coach right now, from my knowledge, that actually would have a winning record going into a new job.
Yes, it was a
Y-
2017.
yeah, and the fact that he got fired for an assistant from New England, who took the job and then pretty much took it downhill from there. And now they turned it over to who I think is a good coach. I think who the Lions have now is good. Don't get me wrong. But you know, Dan Campbell was a great player, and obviously he brings that player mentality.
Hmm. He
But
he 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 inspires people to, in his words,
yeah,
not mine, go
sure,
out there and break kneecaps.
sure, sure. We'll go with that. That's fine. We can go with
No,
that.
he has literally said that word for
No,
word.
I believe it too. And I
Okay.
watched building the franchise, or whatever it was called, in the Lions Den, or whatever the show was called, where he went to the Ford plant and he was talking about teamwork and all this stuff. And it's really exciting. It just didn't translate to the field. Now, what Jim Caldwell did, which is the same thing that Tony Dungy did, which is the same thing that you know.
which is insane now thinking about the whole Tony Dungy deal too with Tampa.
Yeah, and that tree was amazing. I mean, Tony Dungy's tree is amazing, but the fact that Tony all he needed was probably one more year, and he would have got the Super Bowl in Tampa. I mean, granted, there would have been no Spider 2Y banana, in Tampa, but looking back on it, John didn't really have any long-term success.
Nope.
So, I mean, did it really matter at the end of the day? Then you bring in several other coaches to try and find that balance. And until recently, when we got, Bruce Arians, it really was no balance.
I just had a crazy time paradox moment, Doc. As far as like a coach who did so well with the team and then suddenly they switched it over with someone else, Mark Jackson.
Mark Jackson. And he never got another opportunity.
Nope.
Never got another opportunity. Mark Jackson, led the team up to the point where, they were in the playoffs. They were getting bounced, I think, in the first round, maybe making it to the second round once. And then Steve Kerr comes in, a little sprinkles a little Chicago magic, a little Bulls franchise, a little Spurs
Little
franchise dust
Spurs
on it.
franchise. Yeah. Probably a
Yeah,
little
and
bit
he
more
says,
Spurs than Bulls.
probably, yeah, probably most Spurs. And then he says, you know what? I can take this team to a championship. Hey, Steph. Hey, Clay. Don't stop shooting, no matter what. Patient, 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 patient.
Which is hilarious because I believe I was watching the Knicks game against the Kings and they mentioned Page's storyography,
Oh,
which is
I
great.
believe it. I believe it. But I mean, just looking at the overall scheme of it, man. I mean, like I said, I don't think the black coaches are getting an opportunity to really succeed, except for the Tomlins. But that whole Tony Dungy tree of coaches was really, really good when you when you really think about who was under him and how much success they had. And their names are synonymous with success. And I'll just go down the list really quickly here.
Sure.
Talking about six head coaches, right?
Hmm.
All of them were coordinators, but Herm Edwards, right? You play to win the game,
You
right?
play to win the game. You don't play to just
Rod
please.
Marinelli, I mean, great defensive line coach. I mean, he was a head coach. Now, he was the head coach for the Lions in that 2006 2008. But I mean, he didn't have the success, but as a defensive line coach, still to this day, very, very great coach. Lovey
Hmm.
Smith obviously stayed in Chicago a little bit too long, came to Tampa. I just don't think it worked
No.
schematically. There was a lot of things going on, but Lovey, I think, is still the head coach at the University of Illinois, if I'm not mistaken.
He is.
I know I've mentioned Jim Caldwell. 26 and 22 record with Indianapolis. Went to Detroit and again had another winning record. It just made sense. And then Mike Tomlin. Um, uh, Mike Tomlin. I mean, what else? I mean, it's freaking Mike Tomlin. He's been in Pittsburgh for over 10 years. You remember when got hired, he was fiery. What I mean, and the defense has always been up to par, and I think they'll get back to that. A lot of people forget about Leslie Frazier, who what
Who
he's
who
done.
who is a candidate for a few of the head coaching gigs. Not many.
See, I think he joined Minnesota. I don't know if he was ready just yet. I think now, obviously in Minnesota he became interim and then became full time head coach. Now I think you look at his body of work and what he's been able to do. I think you go back to him. You go back and say, hey, maybe Leslie can get an
And he's right
opportunity.
now still in consideration for the Dolphins head coaching job. That's the only one because the other two were the Bears and the Giants.
Right, which Leslie would have been good in those opportunities. The other coordinators, you got Mike Shula. I guess that would be junior. He's a coordinator in '96 with Tampa. Clyde Christensen, who I don't think ever really got an opportunity to become a head coach, but really been really good. Joe Barry, who's a defensive coordinator in Washington, the Commanders. Like I can't even say football team anymore.
Nope.
I have to say Commanders. I can't even say the old skins. I have to go with Commanders.
Nope. We may
Uh,
need to put in a penalty of a nickel
Yeah.
for each time one of us say either the football team or the Old Skins for
Old
next
skins. I
season.
can understand that. I don't want to pay any fines. So, that. Obviously, the current head coach of the Colts today, Frank Wright, was the offensive coordinator under Tony Dungy. The list goes on. I mean, I'm sure there's some other, smaller staff people, QB coaches and whatnot that were under him, but they didn't really mention anymore. But just looking at the black coaches that are on that list, they all are synonymous with success.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what I'm saying. I think for them to just be invited to interviews just to fulfill a rule is unacceptable.
Completely unacceptable.
But outside of that, Johnny, I think the only other news that I saw earlier today, and maybe we'll spend some time tomorrow, unless something else crazy happens, talking about the WNBA. There's been some free agent signings. I think I just saw that they acquired $75 million, and I want to say it just said money. I think they acquired $75 million. I don't know if it was
Yeah,
media money.
it's for like further development. As far as where the
Yeah,
money came from,
I have to do some more
I don't
digging
think they
into that.
necessarily stated it
Y-
completely.
Yeah,
Although I'm having Chris check real quickly.
Chris.
It's coming
Where?
from you're gonna love this list.
Uh oh.
So the funding comes from several sources:
Oh,
Nike,
okay.
Condoleezza Rice, Lauren Powell
Oh, I
Jones,
see it.
Pal Gasol, Joe and Clara Sy, Michael and Susan Dell, Swing Cash, and Baron Davis.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. So we'll have to talk about some of the. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. Some of the signings. I know one player got traded, and I think because of the time difference, the time zone difference. I think she was in France. She woke up in the morning and found out that she was traded.
Mhm.
So we'll maybe jump into some of that
And
tomorrow.
we also had a coaching contract milestone that hit as well to the WNBA. But we'll talk about that tomorrow.
We can definitely talk about that tomorrow. But Johnny, I know the people heard this podcast on their favorite podcast platform. But if they didn't, they can always go to our website at www.debateamongstfriends.com to review this episode as well as all the previous. Be sure to tune in mañana as we go over the news, the analysis, and the reads.